Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to Yu-Gi-Oh! And video game news. It is Monday, August 29th for about 30 more minutes for me. I got obsessed in another project of trying to set up a Raspberry Pi as a guest Wi-Fi router using Rasp AP, which I would say Rasp AP seems to be a little bit early in early days and not fully featured enough, frankly. But I'm making decent progress. Regardless, though, that led to me just staying up all night and really then sleeping all day, and then that is where we are here, where I'm barely even making it on Monday. We have 28 minutes until this duel pass ends. Daily logins and all of this just needs to be hit. I still seem to be very much missing, particularly for this month. I'm surprised that I've missed so many daily logins, because that just doesn't feel like that's accurate. So I wonder if it might be more of a case that the login rewards have to be collected fairly quickly. So going forward, I will definitely make a special effort to do that. Now, for the accountability section, like besides just being an insomniac and trying to stream at what is absolutely the worst time possible, just almost right now guaranteed no views at all. Which, arguably, if I was a smarter YouTuber, I'd just say skip it, and just don't do a live stream. But we still got video game news to deal with, and frankly, I got all these daily logins to do. And frankly, if I start going down the path of saying skipping things... Why is that not working? Scene collection live. Web peak. Display capture needs to be switched around to that. Okay. So, the daily PC game shorts, if I am going to go down the path of... I'll just jump back to the back here even though it's blurred. If I were to go back down the path of just giving up on things because they're not working instead of just doing things because I want to do them, well, now that the YouTube algorithm seems to consider your channel, whatever channel score or whatever the algorithm looks at, as far as suggesting YouTube shorts based on long form videos, it's fairly obvious that my channel is in the less than positive range as far as a channel score, and the YouTube shorts have seemingly dropped down to getting one view at most a day, where I was getting quite a couple of them that were getting like 500 views, which 500 views is a lot, frankly, for very little work. So arguably, I'm getting the message here to give up on the YouTube shorts, give up on the YouTube channel in general. Like, that really is the message there. Start a new channel for shorts, start a new channel for long form content, start uploading and moving things over to the new channel, possibly at some other point. That's impossible. It just would not work. But yeah, we're definitely I'm definitely suffering from the comparison that's happening there. And we wanted to get up to platinum, so if I can get 2 more wins today, I think at that point I'm going to stop playing, and we'll see if we can just get the daily winning. If we get to platinum, we'll just end at platinum. which will make for an interesting stream today anyways. I did finish Reigns Her Majesty, and it's not a game that I particularly would recommend anybody play without a walkthrough. And specifically, I will warn you that at least one of the options after getting the first ending resets your whole game. And there's just no way I'd want to play that game a second time. Even knowing now what I do know as far as different choices. You basically need a walkthrough to tell you the right answer for every single action that is prompted to you, whether you should swipe left or swipe right. The story goes in a different direction compared to the original Reigns, which is kind of interesting, but if anything, it seems to be kind of just a meta commentary on the decline of things like Tinder, the swiping right and swiping left, which ironically that is one of the things that really makes Reigns Her Majesty fail, is that I just don't think there's that many people that think the whole swipe right, swipe left thing is a thing that matters too much as a feature, whereas it was the whole selling point of, I believe, Tinder. And I don't know if people are really even on Tinder so much as they're on just several other services. So, yeah, there's really not a lot to say about it other than I would not recommend people play it. The biggest twist on the game, and I'll just spoil it for you, is that at a certain point you get in a hedge maze and you have to go in the direction that the shadows on the images are pointing. So you'll see a shadow being cast, and because the shadow is being cast, you know the sun is to the right instead of to the left or forward, and then you are supposed to go in the direction that the sun is. And they tell you this multiple times throughout the game, but they don't really explain how you're supposed to know where the sun is or how you're supposed to connect those two thoughts. And there are definitely points in the hedge maze where it's either kind of doesn't matter, or it is very cryptic as to which one it is. You're barely seeing a shadow, or there is a shadow cast, but the prompt to that shadow is to sit on a bench for a while, so you're supposed to just sit on the bench for a while. I assume that all counts. The game fairly quickly shows that it is built around the idea of the game being a simulation of a simulation. And because of that, you also have a weird turn of events about halfway through the game. If I were to activate this, could I discard this card? Yeah, let's try it. No, but I could discard that card, which arguably would have been a better move anyways. Yep. So yeah, I could go on about Reigns, but I barely had anything to even really say. I was just exhausted and drained, and it definitely feels like the original version of Reigns would have had probably half as many cards. It has, I think, about 1,000. I probably only unlocked about, I'd say 750 of them. And that may have affected my experience differently had I played it when it first came out, but that doesn't really matter. And from a video game critic's perspective, if games are only good in that launch window of the first 6 months, there's a big problem already. But also with Reigns being kind of a mobile phone game, first and foremost, I just don't feel like it plays particularly that well as a actual mobile phone experience. Okay, so that was the wrong move. Like, I really don't imagine you do that well, putting the game down for a couple days and picking it up and then trying to remember all the actions. There's just a ton of actions that are just kind of preemptively brought up over and over again, and a lot of them don't feel like they're pushing you towards an actual achievement of anything. They just seem like you're getting random cards. And you'd almost forget of it if it was a real world card game where you're just getting random cards and then there was some kind of Dungeon Master guidebook to tell you what the outcomes of choosing one decision versus the other is with the cards. But in a digital format, you could certainly have done that smarter. The thing that I mostly ended up having to say about Reigns or Majesty is that if the game gave you perfect recall and just showed you a graph where each card's decision, whether you swipe left or right on them, was shown as question marks to start with, and then you slowly filled in the graph, and you could just always go back to that graph and compare it, there's a potential decent experience there. But the game is in a very mushy middle where you have things that are more like a deck builder game like Hand of Fate or even Darkest Dungeon that do it way better as far as interface and just gameplay and visuals and pretty much everything. And that's really where you'd have to compare Reigns or Majesty to is Hand of Fate or Darkest Dungeon, and I wouldn't be surprised if Darkest Dungeon and Hand of Fate could be put on a mobile phone nowadays to compare it to. Or, if you're not going to go the route of having a deck building strategy game, you could have... It's in the mushy middle in the other direction of a visual novel in which it's trying to tell you this story, but the story is in no way as good, and it is just being incredibly hurt by the gameplay mechanics, slowing things down and randomizing events and occurrences. So yeah, I'm just not happy. I am just not happy with my Reigns or Majesty experience. I'm probably going to find out that I'm not too happy with myself in general, because I probably need to schedule some more videos and I'm dropping the ball there. And yeah, just not really getting anything accomplished at any fast rate. I also needed over this weekend really to play more Zelda Breath of the Wild, or I'll just never finish that game, and I didn't do that. The problem is definitely that I am sleeping a lot more than I should be. Like insomnia or just general unhealthiness has led to me taking like 15-hour, not even quality sleep sessions, and so when I am awake, I'm waking up and it's not like I even feel well rested and good. I often feel fairly bad in the past months of just sore muscles or being overslept. And I'm going to lose my excuse of it being so hot now as we're moving into fall. Or at least I think I will lose that excuse. Moving on to video game news, THQ Nordic has said that some of the pre-ordered Destroy All Human 2 Probe Collector's editions might arrive a few days later than anticipated. If the order is delayed, please contact us to support to receive a replacement key. Which I guess means you can get the game via download even if the physical disc is going to be delayed. Okay. So I guess you still go through the motions even on the first turn with this. Yeah. It is very ridiculous, I'll also have to say, as far as just accountability section, that I am streaming it all right now. I had a good number of viewers and commentators watching my videos, and to stream in the middle of the night is to pretty much guarantee that nobody will watch. Perhaps if this was much closer to the beginning of the month, I would just have skipped today. It's not even like over the weekend there's a ton of new news. I also didn't get as far as I would have wanted to get. I've lost my train of thought there. Okay. Let's Ash Blossom and hope that that was the right move. There was this whole YouTube Game On thing. It happened. It looked like a lot of live streams happened. I skipped around watching one of them, and I was not particularly enthralled with it, to say the least. It did not look like it was really anything of real interest there. And it did just kind of feel like it was YouTube trying to flex on Twitch at the beginning, and that's seems to be mostly what it was. A bunch of special picks the favorites of YouTube, gaming, of which there's not even really that many, doing very small clips of playing games, and also not doing video game things. Which, anytime you see them bringing a bunch of gamers together and then having the gamers not play video games and instead doing real world challenges or something else, that shows that there's some production company or producer in general that just doesn't understand video games at all and doesn't care. And that's something that I think most people, if you are a gamer, should say no to. Now, perhaps there's a small controversy that I saw that a YouTuber's video, a pretty big YouTuber's video, got age restricted, and then he contacted a customer rep, which it's nice to have one of those, certainly. So he was kind of a medium YouTuber complaining about not being a big YouTuber, which, I mean, that's the only person that's going to even get enough followers to get a story out like that. And he happens to be black, and so he's in his clickbait titles at least implying that it's because he's a black player. And then to jump on the bandwagon / amplify this, Markiplier supported the guy and played basically an adult game with a lot of censoring and blurring, and called it the trying not to get age restricted challenge or something like that, just kind of jokingly memeing on how YouTube treats different channels differently. Arguably, as a small YouTuber who would love to throw shade at YouTube in any factor whatsoever, I think YouTube is fairly consistent on its age restrictions and family friendly stuff, way more than they're consistent with anything else. So and when you have people like MXR, where his channels get age restricted / guideline strikes, like they're obviously pushing it very far, when you know that you basically have to have the values of a conservative Mormon to making content on YouTube. They just want it to be as family and advertiser friendly as possible. It's just all about the advertising, and since they're beholden to the advertisers, they are fairly consistent on that. Now, there have been in the past some major exceptions on that. There was definitely a YouTuber that was just sticking things up his butt a year or two ago, and those videos were getting a lot of recommendations and replays, certainly when just the act itself and the way it was being presented, even if it wasn't actually happening and it was just all fake, if it was just all a magic trick and faking it, doesn't even matter. Those videos were going crazy, and then certainly the crazy cartoons of Elsa peeing and things like that that happened several years ago were major exceptions of that. But these incidences are the things that triggered the stricter family guidelines, and I think overall they have been for the better. And I really don't care, like, even if I had 1,000 subscribers and was monetized and one of my videos got age restricted, I wouldn't spend my time complaining about it or caring about it. There's probably a couple of videos that I do have that are age restricted, of the many videos I've made, probably close to 10,000. but it's definitely not happening at any real rate. And if it was going to happen at any real rate, it would be because would actively engage in playing an adult game, which I'd love to do, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I covered Honey Pop, for instance, which, interestingly, the Honey Pop developer has a YouTube channel, and they have not put out anything at all since Honey Pop 2, which is fine. I mean, I guess might as well just not try to advertise anything or talk about anything if you're not anywhere ready to release a new game. And arguably, I don't know if you could make a Honey Pop 3. Anyways, the concept is fairly consistent or fairly played out. But yeah, I don't think my videos on Honey Pop led to any kind of I've never gotten a community guideline strike or anything like that. So there is a way to kind of coldly and cover more adult material and maybe get it locked behind a age gate without getting a guideline strike. And most content creators that are successful, unfortunately, have to go in the other route of being everything clickbait, everything trying to push it as far as possible, everything trying to get as many horny teenagers to look at it, even though they shouldn't. And yeah, TV and movies definitely have had to create entire dances around that. You make a movie like American Pie and you release it right alongside a cartoon in the movie theater, so they buy a bunch of tickets to the cartoon and then sneak into the American Pie theater instead. Let's see. Susan Wojcicki retweeted that this Robert Kinkle, who is the chief business officer of YouTube, after 12 years is going to move on to his next challenge. And then they say they owe him so much for the growth and impact to your leadership. And then Mary Ellen Coe is YouTube's new chief business officer. I wonder if this is perhaps a case where they're setting up a woman to replace Susan Wojcicki in a couple of years, because it's going to look somewhat bad if they just replace her with a man. Mary Ellen's career at Google has been dedicated to making partners more successful, and I know she'll do the same for creators, partners, and users. What are partners in Susan Wojcicki's mind? That's the question certainly to ask, because it's not creators. Partners must be the advertisers that are selling ads. And it's a little unfair to put it all on any single CEO, but you can blame pretty much all C-suite level managers nonetheless. But certainly I don't think he's done a good job of being a chief business officer, because YouTube's never been profitable. YouTube only exists because AdSense exists, and AdSense only exists because it makes all the profit on the internet as far as running ads. That they've created YouTube that, in the same way that they created Google, to be the football field in which players play, but they don't care about the players playing on the field. They care about the ads on the sides of the football field. And I just don't know if it really is sustainable in the long run to have to create your own playground just to sell ads. I don't know if capitalism and advertisements in the long run actually are sustainable, because you at best would have to think about, like, what is the oldest company possible to exist. And in the United States, I don't know who you'd really say that is. You almost would lean towards thinking maybe Disney is the oldest company, but then you have to also think about how many of these companies have gone bankrupt and effectively are not the same company. And if you calculate that into it, the oldest company in the United States may be very young, 30, 40 years at most, without going bankrupt. Maybe some insurance companies, maybe Coca-Cola, but yeah. Particularly when you're relying on people looking at ads, and people are increasingly not interested in looking at ads, and ads have always been a scam in many ways, because you just don't get your money's back as much as you should when you run advertisements. You may notice that Coca-Cola runs very few commercials, because a good product, if we can call Coca-Cola a good product, sells itself pretty much, and bad products are not going to sell regardless of how much advertisement you put around it. Inherently, I have to assume that there is going to be a dark day in which YouTube says, we're going to put some major restrictions on how much video footage you can put up, or who can put video footage up. And when that dark day occurs, hopefully they will allow legacy people to be exempt from that to some extent, or at least a lot of videos to be exempt from it. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, there is some point where I just have to do a desperate struggle to try and download all of the videos I've put up on YouTube, and I just don't have the hard drive space for it. I actually may have the hard drive space for it, I just don't have the servers set up for it yet. But yeah, that is a project I've backburnered. But yeah, I can't imagine YouTube just going on forever, because unless they were getting some kind of secret benefit on top of what they admitted to as far as scanning videos and programming AI, I just question if they could really still be getting that kind of secret benefit for getting so many videos made. If anything, it would make more sense that YouTube, with their massive storage setups, are actually just trying to hide some horrible deep dark secret, and they're trying to have security through encrypting a single bit inside of every single video across billions and billions of videos. Or that they were getting funded by, say, the CIA to just intrigue kids to become YouTubers and stay off the streets and not revolt. That would also make some sense. Yeah, but I think that's more than enough rambling for today, since it is a late night stream anyways. It is a late night stream with also the potential of some other stuff popping up here. So let's burn through the news and see if we can do a fairly short stream, because yeah, if I can get to platinum, great. That's when I'll stop, and then I'll just have nothing else to do. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle says the latest White Elite Series 2 controller leak points to a September release. I think we'd already talked about that. There may be very little new news here. I think we had already talked about Firefly Edition being restocked and may come to Europe too. This is the $100 limited edition. That's, I guess, not limited. 6 weeks after release, Netflix's Resident Evil series has been cancelled. The streaming giant has reportedly decided not to order a second season. These liquor characters, by the way, in the Netflix series show up in like one episode in one scene, and it's a pretty dark scene, so you don't even see them as the way they are being depicted here. Well, arguably you could have had these liquor characters be the big bad for an entire season, if you wanted to. I don't think anybody's going to really complain about it being canceled for if anybody had actually seen it in the first place. One thing I will say though is it probably was canceled in the hearts and minds of Netflix before it was even released, and they just waited 6 weeks to announce the cancellation just to see if possibly there would be some like upswell of support or love for it. Because 6 weeks after something is released is an incredibly early amount of time to let it leak that something is canceled, to even tell the producers and directors that something is canceled. Because I think you've probably just spent the extra $10,000 or so to go 12 weeks to 6 months, and just have people think that there is a chance a sequel would come. Have the actors, have the directors, have the writers even believe that there's a chance of a sequel to come, or a next season to come. Like, it is very possible that there was some kinds of contracts that were effectively pay or play contracts that you would have to pay to make people available to shoot a second season and make it seem like you're available to shoot a second season. But it's not unheard of in Hollywood to go through the motions and just spend a ton of money pretending like you were going to do something that you weren't going to do, just to prevent leaks from happening. I don't see a major benefit of Netflix allowing this leak to happen. They didn't come out and straight out announce it. But Netflix has been incredibly quiet about those things. Netflix, in a lot of ways, seems to like to do their business in such a way that they're willing to consider making a second season at any point, or they imply that they'd be willing to make a second season at any point, even if something became popular like 5 years after the first season came out. But that's not really realistic. That Hulu/Freeform TV show that I was watching, Motherland Fort Salem, it wrapped up as far as I could tell. I saw the last episode. I'm fairly certain it's not terrible. If anything, I think it probably goes in a slightly better direction than, say, many seasons of Charmed, maybe even several seasons of Supernatural to compare it to. But it definitely gets rushed, and there is definitely a point where you stop seeing the main character, or one of the main characters, even like actively participate with the rest of the group or show up. And that's probably the point that there was some kind of conflict there, and when that actress does come back, her hair is completely different, so I don't know if she went off and did a movie or if she's just coming back under protest. Warehouse 13 has a similar thing where one of the main actor guys has this terrible haircut in the last season, basically, and at that point, you know, they kind of don't care. And there's some kind of conflict. Inherently, this is probably an example, like when you think about all those shows that go bad because there's either a conflict between the actors or the producers or directors or just someone behind the scenes. It's kind of amazing that any of them actually go well. Any shows even have a chance of ending well. Very few shows actually do end well, but it highlights how anime, as a former anime otaku super fan, anime is better in that aspect. It really is. It's so much easier to potentially replace a voice actor if you're having trouble, and most Japanese voice actors would finish the job under even the most stressful abuse. So like you just get these more finished stories, or at least you would in anime if they weren't based on mangas that go on forever. But yeah, when you think of like Bleach is a series that got dragged out forever and had a whole bunch of filler arcs, but at least it got an ending. Dragon Ball Z, whole bunch of filler arcs, but or tournament arcs, but still got an ending. Whereas if Bleach or Dragon Ball Z had been a Western live action show, it wouldn't in no way have gotten anywhere close to a full experience. And then a lot of animes also do just target doing one season anyways, and so they tell you a mostly finished story, particularly also because they were focused, at least in the day, on the idea of selling DVDs and box sets, and you're less likely to sell those if there isn't a finished product. I mean, honestly, it probably should be way better of an experience in anime than it is, because there's still plenty of anime shows that do just get canceled horrifically. Nothing ever really gets finished, and that's my main complaint about most art, and it's probably something that colors my decisions to try to cover most games all the way to the end. And video games are, to bring this back to video games, are, I guess, a much better example of something that tends to actually have a full ending and be self-sustained in itself. But yeah, I would say I mostly did enjoy Motherland Fort Salem. I would say check it out. Take your time, certainly now. There really is no rush. And just know that the last couple episodes are going to be heavily rushed. There definitely are decisions in the last 5 to 6 episodes where they are just taking a plot lines that they wanted to have and rushing through it and just skipping sections. It literally will just like fade to black. In fact, I almost wondered if it was a Canadian show that showed less commercials, because Sci-Fi Channel used to do that. They used to show Canadian shows and then edit 10 to 20 minutes out of the Canadian show to fit it into the TV airtime, and you would just see major amounts of content just kind of skipped over. But yeah, they skip ahead quite a bit, but they give you resolutions. It's just like the transition scenes are missing. They wanted to have a wedding, so they rushed to have a wedding. They wanted to have a fairly big conflict, and they kind of rushed to try to have a fairly big conflict. They wanted to have somebody die, so they rushed to have a character die. That didn't seem to really matter. And it ends on a fairly decent note. Now, spoiler for the show, they introduced the idea, or they introduced several ideas that would drastically change the world. So if they were going to make a sequel, it would be intriguing to see how that sequel would play out. Although arguably the Motherland Fort Salem series, if you were going to try to introduce 3 new characters and put them in a different country, would make a more interesting story, because they did kind of jump around the world and focus around a alternate world where there was a lot more going on in places like India and even California, because the actual United States in this world was really just the original 13 colonies. So if you just had it take place in California, or make a prequel of events that took place in like California, that would be fairly intriguing too. You could also try to do a soft reboot, but I would worry about them trying to do something like opposite of the reboot of Charmed, where the original Charmed was a Monster of a Week show, and the reboot was taking those same concepts but then trying to squish them all down and make them a consistent narrative story, and didn't really succeed at that. So if they were to reboot Motherland and make it a Monster of a Week show, I think that would probably be a problem. Yeah, it is a series that really Motherland only went like 3 seasons, so it's not really getting as many episodes as it should have. And it definitely went in a far direction, because it really starts as covering like military cadets going through military school, and then it ends with a near revolution happening. Guess you send this to the graveyard. And I guess you add this to your hand. But yeah, I would say check it out, but take your time, take it slow. Potentially watch episodes twice in a row, since there isn't that many. In a lot of ways, I would say Motherland probably is better than Charmed, not as good as Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Supernatural. You're just going to go in those different directions. But it's nice to see any of that happen, or any new content really happen, because it definitely, for the most part, the prime over the air channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, all of them are not really making anything that is good, or anything that's like sci-fi or niche in any way, and they're instead just doing a lot of very old people shows. Chicago Hope, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Law and Order, things like that. Very dramas based on real world events. It's basically soap operas for a new generation. is all you're getting on the major producers. So if there is any new content being made, it's either pretty awful failed content from the CW or it's from some other source. Another Freeform show, and Freeform does seem like it is being this like teenage Disney Channel, and I'm far too old to be really watching these teenage shows, but I guess that just shows what I enjoy watching, just nostalgia in general. They do seem to be kind of all over the place with their budget, and no, honestly, I would say it's probably they put all their budget into Motherland Fort Salem and none of their budget into any of their other shows. But they have this show called Shadowhunters based on the Immortal Engines book, and those books must be totally just the worst teenage girl fluff I've ever seen by looking at the show, because the general conceit seems to be at the beginning of it is to just get every single character to have as many tattoos as possible and wearing as much black leather and provocative clothing as possible. And yeah, it definitely has just kind of a weird vibe, for lack of a better term. Well, honestly, even that show isn't... Even Shadowhunters is not a terrible effort. It highlights, Freeform really highlights how awful the CW is. It just really is. Not even really trying to be good. But I'm supposed to be talking about video game news, and you can see I'm not sleepy at this point. I'm barely awake, and so I'm getting distracted because of that. And generally, I think I'm just distracted. But yeah, we were supposed to be trying to rush through this, and instead I'm talking about live streams that I watched. I do think I've mostly fixed my network stuff, although I am having some weird network issues at the moment. But I think I do generally have it set up decent enough to leave it alone. Video Games Chronicles here. You need to actually play. It says that the System Shock's owner says it's now up to Tencent if the sequel gets made. Night Dive clarifies that the status of System Shock 3's stating that the rights were sold. I think people had already been informed of this. I won't say that people knew this, but yeah. In what is one of the weirdest deals that's happened in recent history, System Shock 3's rights were sold to Tencent, where Night Dive focused on the remake of System Shock 1. But also, there, I believe, is a... there is the System Shock 1 remaster that either came out or is coming out. So they really just ran out of money is what I think happened here. And they just sold... They tried to do as much with System Shock as possible all at once, which will inevitably lead to flooding the market. Or they made too many announcements at once. would have made a lot of sense to say, um, we are making a remaster of System Shock right now, and then secretly work on a reboot remake of System Shock, and also secretly sell the rights to System Shock 3. Because now you have this weird situation where there's no satisfaction to be had at all, because if the remaster of System Shock 1 is good, fine, you can play the old game and it looks a little bit better, but that doesn't really connect to the System Shock reboot, which would make the graphics even better and potentially change the story and how it plays. And that doesn't really connect to System Shock 3, which could take the narrative and the story in a very different direction. Meanwhile, all of this is being done way too late compared to Bioshock, which Bioshock ending in Shock is not a coincidence there. Bioshock took the concepts of the gameplay style of System Shock and put it in a different world and improved upon it. And there's been a whole trilogy, and we're waiting for a potential Bioshock 4 to even come out at this point. And there's just no way around it. Like, you just are going to have this weirdness in which you have a series that is made by different people and is just inherently going to feel disconnected and different, much more than even like Bioshock 1 and Bioshock 2 and then Bioshock Infinite are all very different. Let's see. Game Pass Friends and Family reportedly discovered on Xbox's backend. Microsoft recently announced a test for multiple user subs in Ireland and Colombia. I guess that inherently that means there might be an argument that it won't come to the United States or not anytime soon. I suppose that is a possibility, but I wouldn't be surprised if they announced it right around Black Friday. It's getting a little too close to November for them to not announce it if they want, if for this year. So I would say if we don't start to see them talking about it by Halloween, it's probably not coming out for this Christmas holiday season. I could see definitely in a couple of years in my own situation getting Game Pass Friends and Family, not for myself but for kids I actively supply with video games and try and spoil. But even that, the kids in my life that I do that for are a little too young to be at that point where an Xbox Series S would make sense, and that you would then have them on a family Game Pass where they could play any game whatsoever. But certainly for people with older kids in their family, it would make a lot of sense. Although you are in this weird mushy middle, because while it might be a little hard right now, let's see what this effect is. Let's cancel this effect. By the time, for most kids, most parents, if you're letting kids play mature rated games, you're either they're either close to 16 or 17 or 18, depending on this. So this whole thing is reset, and we are now at the next Duel Pass. which is fine. That doesn't really matter. We'll buy the Duel Pass here in a second. The question here is, can we get to Platinum? That's really what we need to have happen. So if I could get a quick disconnect now, my win ratio may go down because my network is better and I'm getting less disconnects. Anyways, what I was saying is, if you're at the point where you're letting kids play mature games, if they're 16 or 17, arguably you probably should just get them a Steam Deck or a PC. Like, the difference in cost between $500 for a family Game Pass and an Xbox Series S and $750 for well, actually, it'd probably be closer to about $600 for a family Game Pass and an Xbox Series S. Probably be closer to $700 if you get a Series X. But if you were to pay $750 for a decent, like, mid-tier, low-tier gaming PC, pre-built or built, don't buy laptops. You'll waste your money on that, and then set up a Steam account and just start getting Steam sales. You can definitely get a lot more games for $100 in a Steam sale than you ever would for $100 a year on a Game Pass, because you're only getting like 4 games coming in about a month. So you're talking 4 times 12, 48 games a year at most, somewhere around that for $100, which I assume would be a share of a family, friends and family Game Pass. Whereas if you were to spend $100 on a Steam sale, you could probably get somewhere to 30 to 40 games in that $100. You know, actually, when I'm running these numbers, it is slightly in the favor of the Game Pass now that I think about it. But you're not getting that longevity. And you're not calculating for, do you want to be able to play this game and own this game at any point in your convenience? And that's something definitely to consider. If kids are in school and they have limited screen time, a Game Pass actively rubs against screen time because you only have a month to play this game. It encourages people to rush through games. It encourages kids to marathon their gameplay sessions as much as possible. It's just not the best way to be a gamer, frankly, using the Game Pass. But it isn't a terrible offering. It could be made a terrible offering if it turned out that the Friends and Family plan was, say, $60 a month. That would be an awful offering. But if you are getting even $200 a month as the expense for a Friends and Family plan, it's not the worst idea. And then you don't have to worry as much about an Xbox breaking as a PC. You don't have to worry about Windows updates. But then you also don't get the ability to actually do anything on an Xbox as far as typing up a Word document and printing it out. Which I'm frankly shocked that they don't just have a Word app, a homework app of some sort built into the Microsoft infrastructure and the Microsoft Office infrastructure, because they have keyboard and mouse support now, so it really would make a lot of sense to have like a cloud enabled low featured Office software integrated into Microsoft, into the Series X and Series S devices. They're plenty capable of handling it. Plus, that would get a whole new generation of people used to using Microsoft Word and Excel. Yeah. I'm still leaning very much raw PC master race mentality, as far as just like, I think PCs are the better way to go. I think programming is a big thing that any kid should at least experiment with, and you can't really do that on an Xbox. I think homework is a big thing, and oddly you can't do that on an Xbox, or at least the pretense of being able to do homework is a big thing. I think potentially being able to install Linux, potentially being able to play a lot of older games is a big thing too. You really lose a lot of history if you're just going Xbox exclusively. Web browsing is not a thing anymore, though, and that's the vast majority of what everybody does. It's just browse on the web. Moving on, ahead of a Twisted Metal expected game reboot, its TV show has finished filming. We saw a few leaks of what that was. This is a video that doesn't want to play. Yeah. I don't really expect too much from it. Let's see. Apparently they also made a Last of Us TV show. I don't think that is aired either. Definitely becomes definitely they've gotten to a point with there being so many different streaming services that these video game based shows are coming and going in different little corners that I'm not even able to see them. Speaking of being able to see something, I think it is a big story that's being overlooked because mainstream video game journalism is covering their own butt here. But the fact that the Saints Row reboot came out a week ago and I have seen no reviews at all for it is ridiculous. The second the street date should have hit, reviews should have gone out even if they are unfinished because the game is buggy. The game is incredibly buggy. Everybody says it is. Nobody can make it to the end, and they are covering up. They are actively engaged in the cover-up in over that fact. Not trying to make it unknown to all, but certainly not doing their jobs as a reporter to put out the news in a timely manner. On street date, which is the time that all reviews are due in almost every single journal of record, as far as video game journalism is concerned, there should have been a review out. You could have said, here's our preliminary review, here's our review update pending, here's our experience so far. Something should have come out there, and it really should have been a scathing review of the entire experience that you've had up until that point. It really should have been like, this game absolutely sucks, it is totally buggy, they are bending over backwards to say it's not because of the woke characters. Fine, bend over backwards to say that if you want, but you've now become a white knight effectively for the game, and it's many problems and just lack of concern and care, and that's just not acceptable journalism. Like, you just can't do that. You just can't not report on something because the game is buggy and try and help what I assume is your friends in the case of... This is an interesting formation. How did he do that? 2 in the monster extra deck zone. Like... Yeah. And it puts me, certainly as a video game journalist, in a weird position because I can't really say that much about a game I haven't purchased or played and really have no interest in purchasing playing. Other than to say, yes, I've seen a quick look, and yes, I can confirm from John Bomb's quick look that the game seems to be broken and just unplayable, completely unplayable, in many different aspects. And it doesn't really seem like there's one that it doesn't seem like there really is a better version in which you can play the Saints Row reboot. It also seems like this is THQ Nordic and Embracer Group showing their true colors once again. Like, this is Strike 2, and I don't think there really needs to be a Strike 3 to say that the Embracer Group does not seem like they are caring at all for the games that they release. They put out a mediocre Darksiders game, and now they've put out a mediocre reboot to Saints Row, and they really haven't done anything else to surprise me. And it does certainly beg the question, at what point do you is THQ Nordic just going to go bankrupt again like THQ because they've run their company so poorly and just not made quality products that anybody cares about playing? It's not good, to say the least. Well, I won't die this turn. It seems like he can pull a lot of tricks here. Moving on with video game news, Bungie has warned that Destiny's boss has a extremely loud roar that's scaring players. Developers advise players to turn down their audio due to the bug. It apparently is a bug. That's what they're calling it. You don't get that many audio bugs that pop out. A Valve booklet appears to confirm plans for future Steam Decks, which seems crazy. Of course, they already said they were looking in that direction, and it would be fairly insane for them to not consider making another one. The problem is, do you trust Valve to actually make one? Sony has acquired a mobile studio while promising it won't diminish its commitments to players. Savage Game Studios is the first in the PlayStation Studios family to focus on mobile. Almost wondered if Savage Game Studios had something to do with Adam Savage, but I don't think it does. A new lighter PS5 model has reportedly been released in Australia. The disc-based version is light as the digital version was at launch. Which, yeah, they definitely seem like they always make lighter versions. Just probably reducing the overly large heat sinks in their machines. Shinji Mikami says Resident Evil 4's camera wasn't meant to be groundbreaking, but the developers including Masahiro Sakurai and Gears of War team praised its innovation. Yeah, it's fairly easy to forget how awful Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3's camos were, and if RE4 hadn't come around and established the over-the-shoulder third-person perspective, the Resident Evil series probably would have failed miserably. Because, yeah, they gained a lot of fandom and a lot of acclaim. And it has been consistently the case that it's never really part of the plan to be groundbreaking with new control schemes, but games that do have new control schemes that succeed tend to be groundbreaking nonetheless. Most things are found in accident. I'm gonna potentially have to run to the bathroom here, and yeah, sure, let's just ruin a stream even more by streaming in the middle of the night and having an extremely long bathroom break. Hey. In the turn. Video Games Chronicle says today was the last day for 3DS and Wii U e-cards. I imagine that's already gone now at this point. Hanger13 confirms the new Mafia game, says it's a few years away. The game is rumored to be a prequel. That would make a lot of sense since the sequel goes in a different direction with a different character. Feel like that had been rumored several months ago. Gungrave Gore comes out November 22nd. A slapstick roguelike Mr. Sun's Hatbox has been announced for consoles and PC. Let's see. Nobody Saves the World DLC Frozen Hearth has been announced. I remember the name of a game called Nobody Saves the World. I also remember a name of a game called No More Heroes and several other games with similar names. Okay. I'm going to end up running to the bathroom here and losing. My best hope here is that this guy will concede. And that's unlikely to happen at this point. Yeah, my best hope is that I can just keep doing things. But yeah, this isn't gonna work. Alright. So, unfortunately, I had hoped he would have just conceded. And then I would have gotten a disconnect or something like that. But it doesn't seem like that's gonna help. I'm gonna pause the video and I'll be back in a few. Okay, I'm back. So that went poorly, to say the least. On top of being insomniac and sleeping, well, This is kind of the prime example of why I just don't function in a normal society at all. It's like can't be awake or asleep at any time. Can't be alert when you are awake. Can't be well rested when you're asleep. And terrible IBS where you're just getting thrown to the bathroom with frequent sudden urges at random points. Like it should be fairly easy in the 9 to 12 hours that I stream on a week to for me to manage to make these live streams without interruption, and yet it doesn't happen. Although in all fairness, most people really can't go 3 hours or 4 hours guaranteed without having to go to the bathroom, which really just highlights the insanity of a lot of jobs when you have scheduled 15-minute bathroom breaks and that kind of nonsense. So yeah, that it's no wonder so many people hate their jobs and are moving towards that anti-work movement when you have bosses trying to micromanage your bathroom breaks and just control every aspect of their employees' lives. Sure, some percentage of people are going to go and hide in the bathroom, but if you were a good manager, you would be very easily able to tell whether an employee was getting their work done or not. And if you can't tell whether somebody's getting their work done or not, then you're either a bad manager or they don't actually have any assignments, or they don't actually have a job that requires any work actually be done, which is frankly the truth of it. People have been putting out this phrases, and I don't know if this is actually managers, of the idea of silent quitting, where you're just doing the bare minimum of a job, and like that's not silent quitting. That phrase is just ridiculous in the first place. That's people doing what's expected of them and nothing more, which is how everybody should do their jobs. You don't get rewarded. They're like businesses, big business, medium business, any business, like they don't have a Paul Bunyan like character that they can put up and say this guy went above and beyond and he was hugely rewarded for going above and beyond. What they inherently do, CEOs and bosses and managers in general, is they go, well, I went above and beyond, and that's why I'm the owner of the business, that's why I'm the manager. And then you only have to do the smallest amount of research in every single scenario to find that no, the person just got lucky, they just got a bunch of money that they inherited, that it really wasn't a case where they went above and beyond. I hate to say there's no such thing as a good boss, but I have yet to see a really good, hardworking boss exist. Like the standard has been incredibly lowered, if such a thing does exist. And if you're gonna push out the idea of people are silently quitting because they're only doing the bare minimum that's required of them, then you also have to throw out the idea of silently firing somebody by never giving them any raises for cost of living and increases, or any promotions or any acclaim or anything like that. Acclaim. Yeah. Ideally, both should be doing very little. The boss should have very little they do an involvement with an employee. An employee should be doing very little, just the expected amount. or a reasonable amount of work. And then the two should just not interact at all. Beyond that. Yeah, if I was a business owner and I had to have a middle manager, which in my mind that's always the theoretical, if I was to own a bar from watching Bar Rescue, like ideally I would want my manager at a bar that I theoretically had to have very little reaction and interaction to the bartenders. Like, he really should just be there keeping a general eye on things, making sure people are doing things right visually, and then just shutting up otherwise, not nitpicking, but also not being so lax and loose. Just making sure people are showing up on time, things like that, and not stealing from the company. But I wouldn't want a manager that is flirting with or having a secret affair with an associate bartender, or one that is harassing the bartenders. And particularly in the idea of having a bar manager, it's a position you would need, but it is also a position I would fully admit that if I owned a bar, the manager would be kind of expected to sit around and do nothing. Like, he's supposed to just like greet people and be there if somebody says, "Can I speak to the manager?" and just shake hands and be friendly and make sure people are getting their drinks in a timely manner, and just making sure the kitchen is staying clean and well stocked. And he's there to open up the liquor closet if a bottle runs dry, although in all fairness there really isn't a good reason why the bottle should run dry in the middle of service, because if you have a bottle that has just like one shot of alcohol on the back bar, you would have, before you open the doors, put another bottle behind that ready to go. But yeah, assuming there was a weird case where a bunch of people came in and everybody wanted shots from the same alcohol, then maybe you'd have to go into the liquor cabinet during working hours. But yeah, mostly the manager just gets to kind of sit around and do nothing and just look pretty, where bartenders are on their feet, unfortunately, and have to work kind of non-stop. And inherently I am not mentioning in this fantasy of owning a bar that I, as the owner, would do any work at all, because I really wouldn't want to do much work. I could certainly come in and just make sure the accounts are well and do the accounting, and I can certainly show my face just so people know that I'm here and I actually care about the bar. But actual physical labor or actual interaction with anybody other than the manager should be fairly minimal. Like, we could get a little crazy and do some team building exercises or just monthly meetings. I definitely would want to keep enough eyes just to make sure the manager isn't lying to me about the performance of bartenders or their attitudes of bartenders. I definitely want to be present and somewhat involved, but not actively doing much of anything. And reversely, I imagine the bartenders really wouldn't want to see me around that often, but also not hate if I am around. You need to be around enough so that they could take you to the side and tell you things like, "Hey, this bartender is hitting on me," or stealing my tips or something like that. You need to be the check and a balance to that. But yeah, bars are relatively flat infrastructures as far as you're going to have maybe 4 to 8 bartenders at most, and 1 manager, maybe 2 at most. You could have like a floor manager and a bar manager, depending on how big the bar is, and then you're going to have just 1 upper manager owner and maybe an accountant and some other support staff there, but not that many. And that ideally would be about where you would want all businesses to be. If you're 5 steps away from the CEO, if you're 50 steps away from the CEO, then there's a real problem there. Anyways, we're supposed to be talking about video games though, and I'm just a train wreck today. A game called Swordship has been delayed to December. It's no longer due out in September. Yeah, with a stream like today, I definitely am feeling like I probably will lean towards the idea of doing the YouTube Shorts to kind of replace one of the 2 pre-recorded shows that airs on my channel, at least between October and somewhere in February. That'll let me get a lot further ahead, and I definitely would be happy to see myself a lot further ahead as far as just having pre-recorded footage ready and scheduled to go. But nothing is going to really replace or fix the fact that I'm just not playing as much video games as I should be. Gamatsu has an article here. We're in the Gamatsu. Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma is coming to Xbox One on August 30th. We had already talked about this, but this is a good excuse for me to potentially play that game, if I can get it out by August 30th, which I probably can't, but somewhat close to that even would be an interesting excuse to play it. Oh, there was something else I wanted to say around this. Oh, no. I saw Games Done Quick seem to be willing to do more Shin Megami games, and so they did a overnight block, I assume it was overnight, of Persona 4 Golden or Persona 3 Golden. And unlike Shin Megami Tensei 5, which was a lot faster in its movements and better graphics as a brand new game, the graphics for Persona 3 Golden are basically low polygon chibi characters from a Vita era game. I didn't really realize that. And Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma is a Vita 3DS era game too, so that's the reason why I thought of that. So oddly, I am not particularly motivated around the idea of playing the Persona, or at least that Persona game. It was a dungeon crawler with a lot of button presses in each attack. Even though it did seem to have an easy mode, when they speed ran it, they were playing it on hard mode. Instead of taking 2.5 hours to speed run it like Shin Megami Tensei 5, it took them like 8.5 hours. So the idea of an 8.5 hour speed run is really ridiculous and just not to a level of being acceptable. So yeah, I am well, I was particularly more interested after watching a 2.5 hour speedrun, not really watching it, skipping around and just watching maybe 20 minutes of it, of Shin Megami Tensei 5. I'm definitely now uninterested in Persona 3 Golden or Persona 4 Golden, whatever it is. Now, that may not really matter too much because the most recent Persona games, I think, have different characters anyways. I think it's fairly much the case that the events that happen in each Persona game is a different character with different group of characters with different events. So if they take what they evolved in Shin Megami Tensei 5 and made a Persona 6 or Persona 7, whatever the newest one is, I still would be willing to consider that. And there obviously is enough of a niche fandom there, but you really have to be certain that you could actually play it fairly quickly and just cheap out on it. Yeah. And I'm still not really sure that's the JRPG game I'd want to play, because I'm not really sure what the story is so much that keeps people so interested in the series. Maybe it isn't that there's as much interest as there's just a lot of people who talk about it, or a lot of advertising behind it. Where if you look at something like Blue Reflection, which is also a JRPG but has like just anime fantasy girls, that's a game that has a lot less people talking about it, so that came and went. Or the Atelier Ryza series probably is a better one to think about. But then if you're going to do Atelier Ryza, then you might consider just doing the Dragon Quest series too. And as a Westerner, I just don't know if I have enough interest in playing all these different JRPGs. I don't even know if modern Japanese people really care that much about playing JRPGs. That they're playing all the series. That inherently, I imagine a lot of Japanese people grew up playing JRPGs, so of course they are now just kind of feeling committed to playing the next ones, but that's not typically how the fads go in the past in Japan. Japan used to be very much about moving on from one fad to the next fad to the next fad. We have seen some reboots of nostalgia, the Berserk reboot, the Sailor Moon reboot. So perhaps the newest generation is becoming somewhat nostalgic, but yeah, I don't know if that's going to carry over to somebody wanting to play multiple JRPGs in a year. Moving on, Gametsu says Team 17 is going to publish a fishing adventure game called Dredge for the PS4 and 5 and the Xbox One and Series, Switch and PC. Which, let's see what this looks like. See the blurred trailer. I hate to have to blur the trailers, but it actually does kind of work. The thing that gets me about this is that you're not really showing any real gameplay. So it almost feels like it's a just steering, like racing game more than anything else. It doesn't actually feel like you fish. It says the key features as you unravel a mystery, you dredge the depths, you study your craft, you fish to survive. So you do actually fish, they're just not showing any of that in the trailer. There was a mobile game around fishing that I played for a brief time before getting bored. It seemed like it kind of was just going in circles though, because there's only maybe 20 or 30 spots you could go to fish, and then there was long wait timers to get from point A to point B. And then if you leveled up, you might see one strong fish, and then you're otherwise just seeing repetitions on weak fish. So that concept probably needs a lot of extra around its edges to work. A game called Ghost Song launches November 3rd for the PS4 and 5, Xbox Series and 1. and Switch and PC, which I'm not sure I've seen this one either. I suppose Humble Games as a publisher is still doing its thing. Yep, this looks like a Metroid game. Yeah. Which is not a terrible thought. Like, we could definitely use more Metroid games. Particularly if they play fairly well. I'm about to lose here. This may be a case where we really are just not capable of getting to platinum. Or I'm not capable of getting to platinum. 2 more wins. Which basically means quick disconnect and an actual legitimate win. And I don't feel like my misplays are that massive, but it is very possible that I am just missing a lot of tricks. Let's see. We already talked about this, but the Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts creators launching that double Kickstarter campaign. I suppose what would be interesting here is if I click on the double Kickstarter, we can see that in a couple of days there is $620,000 pledged, just about, of a $721,000 goal with nearly 5,000 backers. I feel like the goals, though, probably are getting updated and changed. If I was to throw some baseless speculation into it, because that would be my assumption. Not so much for that effect, whatever. It's interesting, as a platform Kickstarter, here you have this double Kickstarter that hasn't backed anything, so when you make your own Kickstarter, you either look like you're selfish and you're not backing something, or you have to then immediately go and back a whole bunch of other things. Kickstarter is showing a lot of information, which this probably would behoove Gematsu to scrape that information and make a couple articles around it. I'm noticing that some of the letters in the dialogue are red instead of white, so there might be some kind of code or hint inside of that. I'm gonna choose to not use Borbo and instead go back to finishing up with this character. Just hope that works. But yeah, you can see some red letters here, but only on this right side. It does seem just very weird that they're presenting 2 games in this order and combining them, and 600,000 is definitely not enough. Apparently there's music already. Let's see. What I'm trying to figure out here is how you would actively back the project to see if that is the final goal is 700,000, which is way too little, or if there is a bigger goal. that just gets raised. They are really promising a lot of like physical edition things, and that's gonna be crazy to try and deliver. It really is crazy that anybody would try to do a double Kickstarter, let alone even doing one Kickstarter. If I click back this project, see, back in the project, if you pledge about $42, you get the digital version of Armed Fantasia. Or you can pledge $42 for the digital copy of Penny Blood. Or you can pledge $60 for the physical version of Armed Fantasia, or $60 for Penny Blood. So far, no real savings there. Let's hope this works. Nope. And then if you pledge $60, you can also get a digital copy with the soundtrack. So they're really confusing things there. And several other things. What's the point where you actually get both of these, both of the games? It's not $80. Alright, both games is where it starts. Is that you could get for $80 a digital copy of both. But the amount of funding or pre-sales you're doing with Kickstarter here just does not really make sense. You'd almost have to... The only way this would really work is if both games are already made or already funded, and they got a deal with a publisher who is not going to really try to advertise the games and instead is just saying, let's do this Kickstarter instead. Up to $152 for a t-shirt. And then they are separating some of these t-shirt and like art books out again as the price is going up and up. So to get all the physical collectible items for Armed Fantasia is $253, which is ridiculous. Or $253 for all the Penny Blood physical editions. Apparently at $500 there's something even higher, but it may just be a signed art book. Let's see. Nope. $750 for a figure. I have to keep remembering to play. Right. Let's see. Toy maker. It's probably. Yeah, $750 for the toy maker effect. Yeah, some of these higher support levels don't seem to be really giving you anything. And they're just limited. Like they're saying you create a newspaper headline, which that probably means nothing. Or name a Coliseum team, that probably means nothing. They're up to $1,000. Design game graffiti. If anything, maybe this is the beginning of an idea where game developers are going to try and have whales that are used to buying microtransactions become whales at Kickstarter. I don't think that's going to really work. I think the rewards visually for buying microtransactions in-game are just way better than potentially getting your own custom graffiti in a game for $1,000 or naming a street. And they've kind of stopped at this point doing both. So, and also it's worth pointing out that if you were to support something at a high level and then you wanted to support something at a lower level, you're going to end up with two different copies of the game, or the exact same two copies of the same game. Name an NPC for $2,500. Design a background. And I wonder if that means you actually have to design it yourself, or if you're working with somebody to design it. Add your pet to the game for $3,500. I mean, it's just really laughable. Really, really laughable how expensive and greedy some of these offerings are. And sorry you don't have to take them up on it, but they are certainly expecting two people here to give up $7,200 to meet the teams. Like, then some of these other ones are already sold out. Yeah, kind of ridiculous. And that's still not really showing like the goal being higher. So seems like it is just oddly an oddly small goal at 700,000 to make two games. Like you need to be closer to $4 million, I would think. $2 million per game seems to be much closer to a realistic amount. Or even on the cheap, let's say it was 300,000 for each game. So maybe then, but that does not seem right. It looks like I'm about to lose, and so potentially could give up, or we can keep pushing forward. Okay, activate, toss. Should do face-up defensive, really. Activate that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Summon this. Activate this. My only hope here is that potentially banishing that card would destroy all those cards. And it didn't. So it didn't. Gametsu has a different interview here. Interviewing the Arn Fantasia Penny Blood developers. Apparently, if you want to check that out. And these games don't look bad by any means. It's just that it seems like an odd way to try and advertise or pre-sell a game. It's odd that anybody would go back to Kickstarter. You know, I'm almost certainly going to lose unless he just started summoning a whole bunch of things. Let's see. A turn-based action combat Metroidvania called Duelists has been announced for Xbox Series and One and PC. Which kind of a low detail art style, which probably would work alright for a video game. Wouldn't really work as an animation style for much of anything else. Do I need to really watch the trailer? Probably not. Yep. It reminds me a lot of the there was a Sega game, Vector Man, I believe it was the name of it, that had a vector-based character with these different shapes that were somewhat connected to each other. And I guess this character is mostly just flying points when they start, and then they eventually evolve and gain more shape, which is an interesting storyline concept. It probably makes gameplay a little bit harder. Let's see, Pixel Art Metroidvania 9 Years of Shadows launches October 10th for PC, which I guess the Pixel Art Metroidvania part there is a description, and then the title is 9 Years of Shadows. I thought this was kind of like the Pixel Junk series when I first read this just now. Interesting that you have that thumbnail and this intro animation that looks really nice if the game is actually just going to be pixel art. Like, this is the kind of animation that I would nostalgically want to say a 90s anime looks like, although in all actuality it's totally not what 90s animes look like. The animation style was way lower resolution and less quality. I have to actually play too. And that was definitely a direct reference to Sailor Moon in that transition style. So they're interesting me quite a bit with that animation, but then they just kind of totally lose you. Any hype you would have done with that intro animation gets lost. This looks a lot like Saint Seiya as far as the armor. It looks like a Metroidvania game, and so it is interesting in that it looks like a different style of world for a Metroid game compared to what you traditionally always see, which is just aliens and monsters. But even at that, there's still a decent amount of aliens and monsters we are seeing here. I can't help but feel a little bait and switched with that intro animation, to the point where I really don't want to like the game as much as it looks like I might like the game. So you set the trailer by being, frankly, dishonest with that intro animation, just too far off from what it really is, has set me to dislike the game when its exact goal was to do the opposite of that. Are these new icons for zombies? I don't feel like I've seen that before. Yeah, Master Duel, I guess, can just tweak things and change how things appear, because nothing's really stopping them from doing that, so they don't have to look like the original cards. Seriously, I only have 2 cards? Okay, then we'll summon this. Let's go ahead and put this down. Let's go ahead and activate this. No, I actually shouldn't have discarded that and summoned that, but whatever. Let's summon a 3. First. Get rid of that. Yeah, summoning that too, I guess, just gives you another thing in the graveyard, if nothing else. You see, before I learned a little bit more, getting to this point would be the point where I'd say, alright, I've either won or I have run out of steam. Now that I understand this deck a little bit better, I honestly think I'm much better suited to continue playing. Of course, a lot of cases you get to this point and you've destroyed their main strategy and they don't have that many cards, so they just surrender anyways, if they are going to surrender. Let's see, Gametsu says Armed Fantasia to the End of the Wilderness Kickstarter campaign trailer. Yeah, this is that same Kickstarter. I was about to say, looks like there might be a whole series of Kickstarters, but nope, this is the same one. Yeah, I said I was going to toggle the adult content back on, and I didn't get around to doing that over the weekend. But I should do that, because the Tokyo Game Show, in particular, if there are going to be any announcements, I think that would be the time to start looking for adult content again. If any of it's gonna matter. Just gonna get rid of this card. Let's see. This week's Japanese game releases: The Last of Us Part 1, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, All-Star Battle R, and more. Let's see, what else? Made in Abyss Binary Star, that didn't get reviewed particularly well. Record of the Lotus War Chronicle for PC, interesting, I don't feel like I've seen that. And then Thymesia was already available worldwide, plus a ton of digital games. We definitely are moving towards a digital-only world, in particular. In particular in Japan. I don't think they have any desire to stick with console discs. But that may lead to potentially the next PlayStation being discless, and that might let Microsoft go diskless, which I'm sure Microsoft would love to go diskless. This looks like I'll win. Right, in the turn there. Apparently the PC game is not on Steam per se, as far as record of the Lotus War Chronicles. Yeah, it looks like they are pretty old collections of old games, going up from, I would assume this is Record of Lotus War 1 through 14, it looks like. Pretty old looking games. Let's see, Gmod Archives Plus, Megami Tensei Gaiden, Shinyaku Last Bible 2, Hajimari no Fukian, announced for Switch. Which, yeah, again, old looking games. Re-releases of old games. I think the Gmod games in particular are specifically games that were on a mobile device type thing. You would think I have to win at this point. Like I've banished everything on the field. Except for this guy. Which maybe this is the guy that he thinks he can still win with. See, Gamatsu as a Witch on the Holy Night for PS4 and Switch has a new trailer for Alice Kunoji, which this is going to be one of these specific character trailers for a specific character in what is probably a visual novel. If anything, I would say the animation style here doesn't really look that good, and you can do better than the slight fade from one still image to another still image. But who knows, this might be based on a old visual novel, or this might just be a fairly well written visual novel. I don't really hear a lot of talk of light novels, which are longer than visual novels, getting turned into visual novels, or mangas which are shorter than a visual novel would be getting turned into a visual novel. It's a little odd that there isn't more of a connection there, because you could think almost every manga artist could condense down his art into a visual novel fairly easily and just resell the same manga a second time, and every light novel author could hire an artist to make a visual novel fairly easily to sell the same product a second time. Yet they've just not chosen to go that way. It's just not in the path of succession, as it were, because the general idea is that if you are a author, you do light novels for a while, and maybe if one sells really well, a production company will turn it into an anime, and if it sells really, really well, they might turn it into a long-running anime or even a movie, and that is that. I think the Fate Stay series started off as a visual novel and got turned into an anime and was kind of unique in that aspect, but that's kind of an exception to the rule. And then if you're a manga artist, same thing. If your manga sells really well, a production company will turn it into an anime. And it seems like you could have that middle step of something selling fairly decently, becoming a visual novel first, and then being turned into an anime. And a couple of visual novels have been turned into animes, but not a lot. We already talked about this. Sony Interactive Entertainment acquiring Savage Game Studios under the new PlayStation Studios mobile division. They're currently developing an unannounced AAA mobile live service action game. I don't like the fact that live service is in it to start with. But you would almost have to assume that's like a Genshin Impact competitor, and it would probably be too little too late. It definitely feels like it's Sony of California dipping their toe into selling mobile games and microtransactions instead of funding the few exclusives that they have at this point. New Mafia game in development, still a few years away, says Komatsu. We already talked about that. The Colossal Cave Adventure 3D remake has added a Switch version. So this game, Colossal Cave, was like a text-based game originally. Just no pictures, I think, at all. It's definitely that first generation of video gamers out there and PC gamers that are older than even I am. So I don't personally have any experience with Colossal Cave. That being said, there definitely seems like there's some level of hype around it. Perhaps that's because of nostalgia. I imagine Colossal Cave could have a decent amount of descriptive text in it, but descriptive of text and nostalgia alone isn't really a lot as far as a potential modern video game. You have to have decent arts and decent concepts, and just saying you ran into a bear and then drawing a bear fairly decently isn't going to be good enough. And that's kind of what this looks like, is that you have a bear and a troll and a dwarf and a pirate and a dragon. Let's see. We will come back and watch the trailer and see if there's something more to talk about or see. Let's watch this trailer. Skip ahead, skip ahead, skip ahead. It's only a minute long. So yeah, you have actual visuals, but it does kind of seem like it's a little soft cell shaded and not quite as good. If it's from the same makers as Phantasmagoria and King's Quest, then I guess it retroactively has some element to it that makes it then more relevant. So I guess that is something to think about. At a certain point here, they showed a vending machine with a big battery on top of it. Yeah, reimagined by Roberta Williams. I guess Roberta Williams is the King's Quest and Phantasmagoria lady, and probably the only first generation female game developer out there. So I guess that does point out a fact, and often I talk about relevancy, whether a game matters to the video game world in general or not, and in this case, I think it is probably a case where I I should play the game even though I've never experienced it before, because it is a blast from the past. It's probably going to be a lot like the case where I should watch Schindler's List, but I don't really want to. But that's probably a bad comparison also, because I don't want to watch Schindler's List because it's a downer of a movie. It would be much closer to saying I should watch a Seven Samurai, which is probably a great movie, but it's an old movie. Or some of the Elvis movies, or some of the Marilyn Monroe movies, like those types of movies that are just a little too old, a little slow. You should watch the Marx Brothers movies, for instance. Duck Soup is like the most popular one, I think. And I would say most people probably should watch Duck Soup, but it is going to be incredibly slow and dry and just difficult to get through. Even like Blazing Saddles is a pretty slow movie by modern standards, and kind of hard to potentially sit through. Also, Blazing Saddles has that situation where it just falls apart at the end and doesn't know how to wrap up. Alright, well, guess we'll set one face down and just attack. I could, suppose, play this and then toss this. That's not really what I meant to do. I meant to toss the other one, but whatever. Take this. And then end the turn. And then our final Komatsu article for today, in the middle of like 2 o'clock in the morning, is the Penny Blood Kickstarter campaign trailer again. Which, yeah, they've put out 2 different trailers for the 2 different Kickstarters merged together. I can say, just seeing that sequence here where he attacks and then you have to draw a line to attack, I think that probably is already going to slow down your fighting in what is probably more fighting than you would realize in a game like this. So ideally that's only for special moves. And then when you see this big like monster creature, if you're going to potentially have to draw attacks and lines each time you attack, that would be really crazy. And that's the problem with like Persona also, is that there's maybe some really fancy animations that you will see in these, but the truth of it is that you're also having to do a lot of menu selecting and a lot of dialogues, and I just cannot abide playing an RPG that is not an action RPG and that is not heavy into the action of the RPG. And it's a little weird that this character is even getting like damage counters and pointers on that, because that just seems like that's a little unnecessary to focus on. Right. So I need, I guess, one more victory to then be able to need one more victory. Alright, and then let's look at games that came out on Steam. This is coming soon. I probably at this point need to reevaluate the idea of not putting things on the fall list because it doesn't have a release date. But I think I'm going to stick with the current policy of not doing that. The danger here certainly is that it is just going to lead to me missing some games. But we really are at the point where we're filtering out 99% of all games anyways. And the other problem certainly would be that you're going to... Is this a continuous trap? Need to destroy that one. And we'll check that one. Yeah, the danger of having a whole bunch of coming soon coming soon potential games on the fall list, and then having to just try to figure out when was this game originally announced because it doesn't have a release date is just way too high. Effects of all face-up monsters while they're face-up on the field, but their effects can still be activated. So that means I can activate this, since it's not on the field. This guy seems to be just doing negate, negate, negate. Let's go ahead and activate this effect too. He's really set himself up to lose. If my negate can simply defeat his negates. Again, not face up on the field, in the graveyard. So he's just out of strategy. I would suspect at this point. Probably shouldn't do anything special in this stream since nobody's probably ever going to see it, so I will make Wednesday's stream, which hopefully I will be much better and earlier about streaming, a special one. We'll get the new season pass, we'll look to see if there's any new changes of any significant amount. Alright. Just gonna set that there. I'm gonna go ahead and summon this, and that's probably just to try and see if we trigger this attack. Now, the problem is while this card still exists, I can't activate my abilities. So I can put a whole bunch of cards in the graveyard, but only this trap will save me. Special summon a normal monster with 2500. Continue attack, no. So he really is playing defensively here. Just hyper defensively. Here we have a game called Necropolis of the Angels. It's probably an asset flip game. It's actually a little surprising that we don't have more games where you play as angels and devils fighting each other. Oddly though, this is just like a shooter. Just an asset flip first person shooter. And that's definitely not what you would expect. Well, as far as angels, you would expect them to have swords and armor and hack and slash each other. You'd expect the heads-up display of any game to look a lot better than that also. Okay. Let's see. So we kind of know that trap is here. Just letting this guy hurt himself more. This one says you can't declare attacks. So I've got to get rid of this one first, which is a shame because I'd like to have gotten rid of this one. And there's the card he's looking for, I bet. Right, that one is being destroyed, so now's the time to activate. Summon this one. I actually only have 3 in the graveyard. This might work though. If I could have gotten the bird one to remove something from the graveyard. See. Special summon a lower beast. By all means. Nope, that didn't work. Well, whatever. That's not too big of a deal. Send that to the graveyard. Take that to my hand. Yeah, unless this guy can activate something. Yeah, we're in a risky situation here where if we could defeat this and this, then we could win this next turn. I'm really trying to pay attention here to this game also. And so, not really looking at games on Steam. This is just the tap to turn game with a different art style over it. Nothing there. Okay. It's risky, but I think what you do here is you attack and destroy this character. No, because I can't attack. You discard this card. Face up that way. Send that to the graveyard. Change that to defensive positions. Let's see. 2 wind monsters. Beast. I think these are earth monsters. That's fire monsters. Hmm. Maybe I should have held this back a little bit more. Yeah, now he's got a second one on the field. How many cards does he have? 28 to my 15? He's still lowering his health quite a bit. I don't know what he's going for here. I need him to basically kill one of the face-up characters and the other face-up character. Just in the turn here. If he kills this other face-up character and doesn't kill this character, I can win in this next turn, I think. Well, I could be proven wrong also. Let's see if this strategy works. Alright. Activate spell. While nothing is face up. Destroy all spell and trap cards. Can he counter that? Yes, he can. Okay. Well, let's try this then. Okay. What does this state? Activate these cards. Negate the effects of all face-up monsters while they're face-up on the field, but their effects can still be activated. Does that potentially mean that the Borbo could still attack? I think you do it anyways, just to try and figure it out. So we'll take this, summon here. Yep. And then we'll summon this one. We can't activate that. Summon this one. And see, this is kind of a great example of, even when you're trying, it just takes a lot of time and arguably doesn't accomplish anything. Yeah, we'll get rid of that and see if we can destroy that. Nope. No big surprise there. Can this one attack? Nope, it cannot. So we'll just end there. Still not anywhere close to running out of cards. He could hurt himself. Maybe he can't put this guy in attack mode. So he may be trapped himself. Well, at least now I could attack with something. Although this was a beast warrior, so I don't know why I could attack anyways. Cursed Eiderland. What is... Let's not counter that effect because I don't think that's going to be that helpful. Still need to destroy this skill drain card. I can't do anything. But I have to be very close to getting the traps here, like that. We've played only one, lost only one of them, so there should be two in this period. Interesting, maybe. Maybe he's doing a trick here where something increases higher and higher. I didn't even realize, I didn't really think he had something else up his sleeve. Zeus now can be a board clear, so we know that's dangerous. Just pull out cards, I suppose. In the turn there. Here we have a game on Steam called Itchy Scratchy, which looks like absolutely nothing. There we have the Dark Egg, which doesn't look visually polished quite enough. Surreal's text-based adventure, it says. As a YouTuber, I just would not be able to play a text-based game that doesn't have a visual aspect, really. The Solitude Underwater is probably nothing, but I'll be generous and give it a follow. Alcoram Restaurant looks like it's an asset flip horror game. Here we have a jigsaw puzzle with an anime girl. It seems to be exactly one jigsaw puzzle. Coming soon. Real question as to why a game like that should be allowed to be labeled as coming soon. I guess it'd be unfair to exclude companies from doing that, but yeah, he is now set up. I doubt I'm gonna survive another turn. This potentially could work for me. Like if I could cancel this, but I would need to get something else on the field, and I would need to not die this turn, which I'm dying this turn. So unfortunately, maybe I'll play some off screen, but once again, we're at 3 hours on the stream and I'm just not getting there. I'm just not getting the 3 wins I would need for platinum. And let's see, when does this end? It ends on the 31st, so we have a little bit of time. There's apparently new special items at the shop. Let's not really deal with any of that. Solo mode stuff, I also need to, I guess, do. I guess I could start solo mode stuff right now. And then, yeah, one more daily login. Let's see, we've updated the rewards for duel passes. You can obtain the spiral quick fix item. Gives duel pass gold will give you special rewards. Spiral quick fix. I don't know what that really means. It seems just to be an icon you can play. New gate opened, new solo content, effectively. Alright. The real move would be to come over here and just try to play with the loner deck on this. You don't have to really play and you don't really have to win. Here we have a game called Search that doesn't look like anything. Here we have a hidden object game called Finding America that's just a hidden object game. Game called Magicians and Monsters. Looks like it's probably a Chinese game that has way too much text in it. I wouldn't be surprised if you're not really directly controlling the characters, or the gameplay is just particularly bad. But it says it supports English, so that's why it showed up amongst my filters to filter out Chinese exclusive games. Windsurfing MMX, I think now does have a release date, so I'll put that on the follow list. I haven't even been thinking about doing any YouTube shorts today. Windsurfing MMX I guess is good. The other, I don't think I've really put too many other games. Discard this graveyard, add 1 skyscraper to hand. If your skyscraper's face up on the field, destroy it. So summon that. And let's see. Higher attack, not the same attack. Or lower attack. And since I'm playing in solo, there is just no timer here. Here we have a what looks like Western visual novel game called Royal Duality. Looks kind of interesting in its interface, but the art style is just about average for a Western animator, and does just kind of feel like it's probably one of these simplistic gay visual novel stories. Seriously? I played literally 1 turn there against the PC, and utmost respect as a deck just defeated me in 1 turn. That is insanity. Try it again, I guess. Certainly shows why they tweaked some of those loner decks in the previous solo mode stuff. Although, in fairness, most of the time that I didn't run into problems like that. This Barboozled game doesn't look that interesting. Let's see, who's who? There might be something to this. Is it multiplayer only? Yes, it is. So I'm going to take it off the follow list, but I will make a YouTube short around it. Let's see. Add a hero from the deck to your hand. Which heroes do we want? Probably this one. Because then we can play that. Then we could go ahead and do that, banishing 2 cards, or we could just wait. Yeah, probably would be better to wait till next turn. Here we have a game called Speed the Card Game, which, yeah, looks like it's a fairly simplistic mobile game port. Yeah, I think I've seen this game before where you play on either piles as fast as possible. It's a great way to tear up your cards. Any of the speed-based card games tend to tear up cards pretty quickly. But I'll put it on the follow list. Arguably, mobile game ports for $3 may be a little bit expensive, but I'm not going to quibble about it too much. I may have made a mistake. Actively. Defense position, piercing damage. Okay. So if I was to do Monster Reborn, and then let's just take something out of his graveyard. Although it kind of doesn't matter. Put that on the field. And then summon this. And then tribute these 2. And then activate this. Three elemental heroes for 2720. Yeah, I think this is a good card to go with. So that, and that. So, if I can destroy this, which I can't, that would have let me destroy that, but I didn't, so pretty much screwed now. Yeah, $2.99 for a mobile game port may be a little expensive, but it's probably the way things will be on Steam. Here we have what looks like a point-click adventure game of some interest, but it's coming soon, so I won't put it on the follow list. Here it looks like an asset flip parkour game that is oddly in a third-person perspective. Let me watch this trailer for a while to see if there's something there. Yeah, it definitely feels like it is a lot of bunny hopping that you would do in something like Half-Life, and this definitely looks like it could have been a Half-Life mod type game. Okay. I've got nothing. Which one is Elemental Hero Wild Heart, by the way? Is it a special? Summon? edge. Wild Wingman. So Wild Heart must be a regular card of some sort. Yeah, Bee-Hop Craze I guess is Bunny Hop, so we'll say no to that. Hot Dog Quest looks incredibly low resolution. That looks awful. Pixel Puzzle Ultimate Jigsaw. Interestingly here, this looks like a decent jigsaw puzzle. Normally I wouldn't put a jigsaw puzzle on the fall list. You can see there's also a whole bunch of like free and for extra pay DLC jigsaw puzzles. But I think I might do a YouTube short on that anyways. Like, there isn't a lot of room for improvement as far as a digital jigsaw puzzle game, and there's definitely Katakawa jigsaw puzzle, I believe is what it is, or no, actually that may not be a jigsaw puzzle game, come to think of it. We're seeing a lot of jigsaw puzzle games, though. This is one I will dismiss. Finding Ice might be something. I probably need to be incredibly more lenient. One more game and we'll be done with the daily quest, and that's all I really care about. As far as doing YouTube shorts, just letting a lot of them show so I could get really far ahead. If I am just going to try and get as far ahead as I would like to be with pre-recorded footage. That also means that daily games will start getting shown like months later, 2-3 months later, but yeah, whatever. This Monster Under Your Skin doesn't look quite like a good enough game. And this looks like a not good enough game too. Right. Is this Wild Heart? This is Wild Heart. Okay. 5 elemental cards in your graveyard. Normal summon this. Activate that, get polymerization. Activate polymerization. Go ahead and select that again. Earth, Wind, and Fire card. I don't think I'd ever have that on the field, but we'll keep that in mind. We need 2 more elemental heroes in the graveyard. Problem, though, clearly, is that whatever he does, he has a counter for everything I can do. Darn it, I can't special summon the elemental guy. I wanted to special summon this guy, but he has a special description telling me I can't do that, and I should have paid attention to that. Still not anywhere close to being done with the games for today. Save the girl here, I don't think is anything. And Crisp's charging challenge, I don't think is anything. I can at least see the beginning of the end. Game called Curses here. Might be interesting. Let's see, Scorpios. Doesn't look like anything. Endure Island looks like an asset flip zombie shooter. Isolate Me. Seems to be another COVID-19 pandemic game. The fact that it took 2 years for even like troll games to start popping up, or joke games to start popping up based on the pandemic, I think highlights kind of highlights a issue. Just add wind. Rydo. This card is on the field and sent to the graveyard. Interesting. That would be light, dark. Do I have 5 elemental heroes in the graveyard? No, I'm still at like 4. I think I'm gonna say no to Isolate Me as far as shorts and as far as putting on a fall list. It's, even if it was a good game, I just don't think I would want to play anything that has to do with the pandemic. That's just asking for trouble. It's just putting gas on a fire at this point. That game doesn't look that good. This might get me somewhere. Discard a card. Try this. Guess use that as fusion material. Then use that as fusion material. That and that. You can discard 1 card, target 1 spell, trap field, then destroy that target. Let's get rid of that card just to destroy this card. Interesting. We got some progress there. Here we have a game called Sketchy Fables, which seems like they might have actually put some effort into this crazy animation style. Enough that I would give it a follow. Although it doesn't have a release date yet, so I'll take it off the follow list for that reason. Also, I think I'm probably going to be a little bit more flippant on visuals. And so if something does just look really weird like this, maybe I would say no to it. But maybe I shouldn't. Oops. Should have summoned that guy. Right. If I activate this effect, I can destroy this here and continue the attack. I believe that's victory. So, and we still have a couple of these to deal with as far as this. Now, the fact that I'm getting legacy packs from the solo challenges does potentially mean that I will have less solo legacy packs in the future. But I don't think that really matters too much, and I am just trying to use up all the legacy packs as fast as possible. Let's see, just kind of. What would be really annoying is if this rolls around and they give me another daily quest, and then the daily quest is to play in solo mode, and you have 1 day to play in solo mode again. But even that wouldn't be that annoying, really. Yeah, we are potentially at the point where I've eliminated all of these legacy packs down. So, yeah, it might be a struggle at some point in the future to get 10 legacy packs and do a card pull. But I don't think so, because I think that is generally what they're pushing you towards, is that for every 2 or 3 days worth of quests that you do, or 2 or 3 days worth of playing, you should earn 10 legacy packs to do a 10 pull there. This is $700 for 700 gold for that. And he said there was something else new here, but I don't really see it. This isn't a new card expansion, I don't think. If it is, I have almost every card. There's no secret packs. So the only thing new in the shop is just getting the gold version of the Duel Pass. Alright, let's quickly burn through the rest of these games and news. I don't even really need to go through my Twitter feed at the end of this because it's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, so there won't be any new news. And then we'll call it a end of what could only be described as a disastrous stream, which I gave my excuses in the past, but at the beginning, but that doesn't really change the fact that at the end of the day I did screw up here and can't blame anybody other than myself or my own failing health body. Here we have a Minecraft clone. I seriously doubt any Minecraft clone is going to come out and beat Minecraft unless Microsoft just gets rid of Java edition of Minecraft, which they, I bet, would love to do, but it would probably piss off so many people they just stop playing Minecraft in general in favor of the Bedrock edition and microtransactions through the marketplace. Here we have another one of those. Anime Girl low effort jigsaw puzzle games. I was distracted because the publisher said RSS for Rosa Special Studio instead of RSS feeds. Really simple syndication. Yeah, it's sad that RSS feeds never really grew bigger as a thing, but they also didn't ever come out with like a version 2.0 that would be backward compatible, so they could have had there been a stronger entity behind the standards group, there would have been upgrades and things wouldn't have been all tied into their own service, but people like Spotify are a great example of wanting all podcasts and audio to be in their own service, and then people that run newspaper sites want you to actually go to their newspaper sites and see the ads instead of getting just the text simplified. In a lot of ways, RSS is like the Google AMP pages, but done even better and done earlier, and still it wasn't really embraced. People really hated the Google AMP services fairly quickly, and I don't know if there was that good of a reason to hate it, but at the end I guess it is just mob rule, majority rule. And I'm just burning through all these games. There's not really a lot to say here. This My Divorce Story might make for an interesting YouTube short, and might even be worth playing. Let's see, and then that is nothing. Let's see, GameDeveloper.com articles. Meta's next VR headset confirmed for an October release. If you're interested, check out that article where I talked about PlayStation acquiring Savage Studios. Meta's vice president of Horizon departs the company, which Horizon Worlds is, I guess, their attempt at making a Half-Life 2 or a Second Life, not Half-Life 2, in VR. And then we already talked about 3DS and Wii U's eShop cards losing functionality after today. And then we already talked about an article here. Shin Mikami didn't realize the impact of Resident Evil 4's camera. Right, and then we've got some fall list games to consider. This one, I guess I'll give a little bit more time to, but we are approaching nearly a year for this game. Let's see. Till Nord. Snowmobile driving. It's free, so I'll put it on the wish list like that. Anyways, get it off the follow list. A free snowmobile game with no in-app features. Profile features limited. This game is not eligible to show it in showcases because it just doesn't have enough sales or reviews. I don't know at this point why it would still not be eligible. Maybe it's a certain amount of dollars in sales. So it's things like achievements. Yeah, the old days of achievement hunting, I guess they curved those. It's been a very long time, come to think of it, since I've seen a game that is just trying to sell itself as giving you 100 achievements, or a Steam badge, or Steam card trading. This point and click adventure game is mixed, so it goes away. We have an RPG Maker horror game, which wouldn't really be my first pick of the type of games to play, but is rated overwhelmingly positively, so people know what it is and liked it. So Tied Up goes to the wish list. Like Creature. What kind of game is this? Almost feels like it might just be. I guess I would suspect it's probably a top-down twin stick bullet hell shooter. It's still in early access, so I'll leave it on the follow list. And we have one that is mostly negative at 27% in the last 30 days. Thunder Tier 1, so I bet this game is really screwed up some way. Game is abandonware. Devs released the last update and it almost feels like a scam scheme. Save your money. This game's not worth it even on sale. Okay, I will believe that review since there's so many other negative reviews. So I guess this was probably a game that people were enjoying the online co-op and the single player to a certain extent, and then they just stopped supporting it fairly quickly if it came out December 7th. And that is why it's so negatively reviewed. You don't see a lot of that on Steam, certainly, but it does happen. This game doesn't even look that good to be on the fall list in the first place. So that can go. Throwdown boxing. I'm going to give some more time. I'm still looking for a decent Punch-Out clone. And maybe with the discovery of the Punch-Out 2-player, Super Punch-Out 2-player cheat, maybe there would be a Punch-Out clone that gets made. That's good. Let's see. This animation style is not good enough, and the number of reviews are not significant enough to make it relevant, so I'm gonna say no. Particularly for visual novels, like, I only really want to play the most relevant and the best of the best. I think we can probably say no to Through Hell to Heaven. Also came out February 2021, has 1 user review. And then Through the Fragmentation, looks like a weird game. I'm not opposed to weird games. Is rated extremely positively at 98% with a lot of reviews, so that too needs to be on the wish list. Alright, so that's our wish list cleanup. There was only 9 tweets in the past 3 hours and a half. Apparently, I don't know why Video Games Chronicles is putting out articles right now, but they're in Europe, so maybe that would make sense. Gungrave Gore could be coming to Xbox Game Pass on day 1, according to an email that would leak. Then generally, I think I probably am just done. Yeah, I could point out American McGee with the Alice Asylum is still highlighting and like showing off other people's arts who are getting hyped around Alice Asylum. Although actually this is actually pre-production art from them, so it is actually relevant. Yep. So if you wanted to see the art, you probably would just follow this guy, Omri Koresh. But yeah, they are still definitely in the pre-production state as far as Alice Asylum, and yeah, I'd put it at least 3 years away, if not a lot longer, if not never coming out in the first place. In a lot of ways, I probably should just mute American McGee on Twitter, because he's going to irritate me a lot, like the Yandere simulator developer, with just a lot of promises and a lot of hype and never delivering. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, and if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and give me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.